Thank you. Consumer Action Law Centre is an independent, not-for-profit consumer organisation based in Melbourne. Our goal is to make consumer markets fairer, particularly for the disadvantaged and vulnerable. We speak to many thousands of consumers through our statewide services, and this year has been marked by more people struggling under the cost of living crisis. Many callers to our helplines are experiencing poverty, and our frontline work provides insight into how our consumer market that includes essential services systematically disadvantages low-income individuals and households. We call this the poverty premium. It both drives and exacerbates poverty by trapping people in financial difficulty and charging them more for services they are struggling with or unable to afford. Examples from our frontline services include people stuck on poor offers and swiftly disconnected from essential services, credit products with eye-watering fees, interest or charges, often greater than the original loan or product, generally only accessed by people with poor credit histories. High default and overdraft fees, penalising people in poverty who naturally have less money in their accounts. Higher insurance premiums for people living in areas where housing is cheaper. We have seen this year a 48% growth in calls to the National Debt Helpline in the first 6 months of the year. For the first time in over a decade, mortgage arrears have eclipsed credit card debt as the #1 presenting issue on our front lines. We are talking to newer callers who haven't navigated support services before, slipping into a poverty spiral with large numbers of outstanding debts and liabilities, causing immense stress on them and their families. In this environment, to get by, our clients afford essentials and feed their families by maxing out credit cards, turning to high interest loans and buy now, pay later products with limited affordability checks. University of Sydney research and our own experience shows these products are harmful to the most vulnerable and entrench their hardship. Low-income groups can often be on standing or poor energy offers. They are less likely to engage with the market or shop around for better offers. Research from St Vincent de Paul found that gas consumers in Victoria on the worst standing offer would be paying over $2,300 more than they would on the best offer. The Victorian Default Offer has guaranteed a fair price for electricity for Victorian customers. However, we continue our call for a similar default offer for gas. In 2022, the average energy debt for our callers was $2,459, an increase of $740 compared to the previous 2 years. Of our clients with energy debt, 52% reported intersecting hardships such as serious or mental illness and family or domestic violence. The solution is beyond just shopping around. Energy concessions must be overhauled. They need to be automatically applied and cater for the expanding scale of energy poverty and debt in our community. Phone and internet connection is essential for work, education, family connection and safety, but mobile phone plans can be unaffordable or unavailable to people experiencing poverty due to the financial commitment and credit checks required. Australia's largest provider and the only provider in many rural and remote areas of Australia has a higher unit cost for its prepaid data offering than for planned data. The ACMA recently reported that in 2021-22, 2.4 million telco customers struggled to pay their bills, but the telcos themselves identified just 4,388 customers in financial hardship. Regulation of the telco industry is out of step with other essential services, and we see this result in cutting off customers instead of offering hardship support. There was real progress last month, however, when Telecommunications Minister Rowland announced directly enforceable financial hardship rules for telco providers. Kirsty has first-hand experience talking with people every day who call our National Debt Helpline. Over to you, Kirsty.
Thanks, Steph. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to tell you what I'm hearing from the callers on the National Debt Helpline. As Steph mentioned, we're getting a lot more calls to the helpline this year, and I'd like to share just 2 stories from just last week. The first person was a woman on the disability support pension who rents privately, whose washing machine broke. She didn't have the money to replace it, so she took out a payday loan. The high cost of this loan meant that she couldn't afford her essentials, and so she took out another one. She's now in a debt trap and months behind, unable to pay for food or her medical bills. her pension is instead going to these high-cost loan providers. Since the cost of living increases, we've been seeing a newer demographic of caller reaching our service. The second person I spoke to is a single mother of 4 working full-time with a mortgage. Because of the interest rate rises, she has now found herself struggling to make ends meet when she hasn't had trouble before. She's been skipping meals to make sure her kids have enough to eat and putting essential living costs onto credit card and buy now pay later accounts to make it through the fortnight. She's trying everything to make sure her mortgage gets paid because she feels like there are no alternatives available to her. The rental crisis means that it's meet the repayments or face homelessness. You need to know that these are just 2 of the cases I dealt with last week and are by no means extraordinary. We get calls like this every day, people on the cusp of poverty or well and truly in the middle of it. You need to understand that these people are already incredible money managers, that they're not in this situation because of a personal failing or reckless spending. It's systemic and it's a situation they're in, and it's just not enough money to live on.
Competition alone doesn't protect consumers. Telecommunications is a good example of this fact, and so we need strong government regulation and cross-sector responses to the issues we have outlined. And the demand on our services is endless. We can't keep up. And so dealing with everything individually is one part of the solution, but we must use our clients' experiences to inform our systemic change work. And since preparing our submission to this inquiry, we have seen a wave of significant reforms and proposed consumer protections driven by the federal government and certain businesses. They are most welcome and must be acknowledged. But there's a long way to go to achieve security and well-being for the most financially vulnerable in our country. People relying on JobSeeker and other Centrelink payments to support themselves and their families are struggling acutely with covering expenses for even their most basic needs. So we strongly recommend raising the rate and increasing funding to other crisis and support services, providing direct financial assistance to people in poverty. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present some of what we're seeing on the front line.
Thank you very much, Ms. Plunkin and Ms. Robson. So, Centacare.